Hello and welcome to the Warhammer Podcast, episode 136. I'm your host, Brad. This is my co-host, Eric.
How's it going?
And today, we're doing an emergency backup AoS episode because the AoS episode that was planned for this week is delayed by a month because of our guest host.
I mean, this is an episode that, we were going to do eventually and kind of want to do anyway, but, look forward to next month. But this one, I think a lot of people could get some use out of.
Yeah, so we're going to do a couple intro AoS episodes over the next few months, just sprinkled throughout. First and foremost, though, we're going to see what's actually worth your money and rank the intro boxes for each faction.
Sounds good.
All right, so let's just start off with Stormcast because we're going to have to cover the intro starter boxes in addition to the Spearhead. Well, the Spearheads, because we've got a lot of options here.
Most of the boxes that we're going to review on this are going to be the Spearhead box for whatever the faction is, but there's a couple other things. How about we start with the starter set? I mean, where else to start than the start?
Okay, so which starter set do we want to cover?
Yes.
GW likes to confuse people. It's like a hobby of theirs. So there are multiple starter sets at various levels. One is not worth mentioning. It wastes a bunch of money on paint and has one unit in it. It's basically just a scam to sell GW paints. Then there is the normal starter set and the ultimate starter set. So the normal starter set is $112 for the box. It's half Skaven and half Stormcast. So if you were to split it between you and a friend, you're both out less than $60, even with tax and all that. For the Stormcast side, you end up with a Lord Veritant, 3 Prosecutors, and 5 Liberators, which is a fine little starting army, especially if you're less than $60. That's not bad.
No, it will give you an example of what Stormcast kind of look like and, how to build them and all that kind of stuff, but not really enough to actually play the game.
That's where we get into it's a fine little start, especially if you wanted to then pivot into one of the other intro sets, if that makes sense. But if you're trying to play your first games together and play Spearhead or something, you want the ultimate starter set. It's $210 MSRP, which is the price points we're going to go with are all the GW manufacturer suggested retail price.
For the US and, all of those caveats or whatever. Basically, it doesn't matter so much as making sure that any of the things that we compare are like to like. Everything's just US, MSRP, easy.
So for $105 for your half of the box, you get the same 3 units from the starter set, and in addition you get the Lord Vigilant on Griffstalker, which is the mounted hero, and this is a legal Spearhead list. So now you can play Spearhead for your opening games and then build up to full AoS. It's not bad, especially because in addition to the models, you're going to get the rulebook for Spearhead, and you're going to get a little handbook with some basic rules in it for the game, and you get some minor terrain for you and your friend to put on the table and pretend there is actual terrain in play.
I mean, it is nice to have that.
It's something.
Not particularly impressive for that, and also AoS terrain isn't necessarily as important, so whatever. The core army for these are solid. The starter set is fine start just to see if you care about actually pursuing this as a hobby. The ultimate starter set does give you the enough to actually play a game.
But what if I told you there was a secret third option? It's a little more time limited. This won't be ageless advice, but currently, the Skaven Tide box came out about 3 months ago. Stormcast is less liked than Skaven, for obvious reasons, because rat people are the best.
Sure.
But if you were to go on eBay right now, just in the US, and type in Skaven Tide Stormcast half, hit enter, there's a lot of listings for $90-ish, and the Stormcast half of Skaven Tide is huge. You get everything in the ultimate set, and you get a Night Quester, you get 3 Reclusians, you get 10 Liberators instead of 5, you get a Lord Terminos. There is a lot of junk in this box.
It is actually half of an army.
And when you've got that for $90 on eBay, it's really hard to argue why you would pick the starter set or the ultimate starter set right now.
But like you said, it's a time sensitive.
Yeah, these will go away over 6 months to a year. About a year after this episode goes live, chances are this costs way more than just buying the ultimate starter set, at which point it's clear that you just do whichever is cheapest for you to get in.
And at a certain point, there'll be another new something for Stormcast, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It is an interesting one at the moment, though.
Yes, but that is not the last of the entry points for Stormcast, because they're the main character faction that GW really wants you to start with.
They're not quite the same as, like, Space Marines in 40k.
No, because they don't have that popularity.
But they have a similar, like, push to it. They're just not successful at being popular.
But the final entry point is the Stormcast Spearhead that is based off of last edition's intro box. This is Spearhead Stormcast Eternals. It's got Yndrasta. It's got a Knight Vexillor. It's got Stormstrike Chariot, 3 Annihilators, and 10 Vanquishers. It's a really decent deal if you don't own a Yndrasta. A lot of the value in this box, both points-wise and price-wise, are in her being here. So I would say if you've already got her, it's not really worth picking this box up. If you don't, then it's a solid pickup at least once. You get a decent variety of different unit types in the army. You get a named character who is beautifully sculpted.
I think you said it very succinctly there of, like, do you want Yndrasta? Because, like, just as an example to show how important it is to this value box, put together, this is like 900 points. Yndrasta's almost 400. So, like, even, like, just looking at point cost in the game kind of thing, this is a large portion of what you're getting from Spearhead Stormcast Eternal is Yndrasta.
Yeah, so, again, Dominion didn't sell that well, so you may want to check eBay prices, too. It is quite possible that you can still get a deal on stuff from that box set, but for the generic entry points that are more accessible to new players, I would say this Spearhead is a good pickup. The Ultimate set, if you and a friend both want to play and you're interested in those two armies, is a good pickup. Or looking into secondhand Skaven-Tide stuff if you just want a buttload of value for, like, no money.
At the moment, that seems like the starting point to me. It is a bit more hoops to go through, though, because, like, you have to go onto eBay and find, you know, a place that's not going to screw you on shipping and all that kind of stuff. So there's, you know, some negatives to it, but a lot of options for Stormcast.
And most of them are pretty good. Like, the half of the Ultimate set is 580 points of models. The Spearhead is almost 900 points of models. Skaven-Tide is like 1,000 plus points of models just for your half of the army. You can pick up a Stormcast army very cheap.
I feel like out of the ones that we've brought up, the only kind of loser is the basic starter set, and that's only because it just doesn't give enough to, like, actually play a full game, but it'll give you, like, oh, I actually enjoy this hobby.
Right, and its boon is that it's $112 for both halves, so it's probably decent to pick up if you just need more of those units and you have a friend who wants the Skaven.
That is true. It can be a nice little bonus on top of what other boxes you want to combo together, because, like, some of these will combo together pretty decently. Just try to avoid doubling up on something like Spearhead with 2 Yndrastas. Not quite the value play.
But let's go through the rest of order. We'll come back to Skaven later.
Yeah, makes sense. So, Cities of Sigmar.
I kind of like their Spearhead. A warning if you're new and you're looking at Cities of Sigmar. They're an expensive army. They're a Horde army, which are always more expensive than Elite armies because you need more models, and GW does not price models based on how bad they are in the game. They price them based off how much plastic they're moving.
So, primary example on that, just to note, they've got their, like, basic troop kind of thing, the Steel Helms. $58.
Yeah, $58, which is 100 points of models. So the ratio of dollar per point in this army is not in your favor if you want to play it. Just be warned.
So, like, 10 models, 100 points, $58. And that's, like, again, like your troop kind of thing. There are other parts to the army, like the actual artillery and stuff like that. But generalizing, this is an expensive army.
That said, this is a 40% discount box, one of the highest out there. It's only 570 points, which is kind of a red flag when it's like, it's a crazy good discount for a $145 box. And it's on the low end.
So you get a Cavalier Marshal, an Ironweld Great Cannon, 5 Free Guild Cavaliers, and the 10 Free Guild Steel Helms. It's a nice spread of things that you're gonna get, but realistically, 600 points is like the lower mid end for what we would expect out of Spearhead. And yeah, this is not doing particularly well given it's a 40% discount of like, oh my god, we're getting so much.
It's a little weird to be like, this is a very important box that helps you make this army affordable. However, it's also an army where I have to throw the warning out there, like for 40k with Gene Stealer cults, of like, their amazing box last edition made it so the army was collectible, and if it wasn't for that, it's a horrendously expensive army.
I think this one is similar, but like, you're only going to realistically want 2 of them, and even then, you know, it depends on what you're trying to do.
But 2 of these does get you a very good start into the army.
It's just, there's not really good value after that. You're going to notice like, oh, I'm going to drop $70 on this, and then, you know, it's 180 points or whatever. So like, you know, this is a great start. This is a good spearhead, but know what you're signing up for, essentially.
Yeah. Moving into what I think is an iffy spearhead, we have Daughters of Khaine, which we'll get into the why here. You get your Iron Scale, Witch Elves, Bloodstalkers, and Doomfire Warlocks.
These are interesting kits because there's a bunch of ways to build stuff and to do other things.
Yeah, they're all dual build kits except for the character. Technically, the Doomfire Warlocks dual build into a different army's kit, but that's a whole different problem.
Yeah, it's I didn't like really want to get into it too much because of that, but
yeah, so it's not the worst, but this is a very multi-prong army. You're either going to want a lot of the Snake Girls and Bat Girls, or you're going to want a lot of the normal Elf Girls, and this box is like super split down the middle, which isn't like horrendous, but it's also not a great discount. In addition, it doesn't have a ton of points in it to begin with. It's like it could have used one more unit, and the Doomfire Warlocks are pretty old looking.
It's not terrible. It's just, it's not great. There's a bunch of small little things that are just like, you know, you kept saying, but there's this and there's that, and it's like, it's still a fine start.
It is. It's just, it's not like a slam dunk like some of them are.
No, and especially because like the 2 sides of the army, the elf and snake, are like actually different. Like one's horde, one's elite. It's not like, oh, like, yeah, they're unique, but like they'll mesh together well, kind of thing. You can make it happen, but it's not like they're actually synergizing together.
A lot of things are going to check literally, is it a snake person? If so, they get a bonus.
So it's fine, but we have another option.
Yeah, so this might not exist for forever. This is the Dawnbringers. It was like the end of last edition's box sets, and they're still available by GW. They don't appear to be limited right now. They may go away at some point this edition, but the one for Daughters of Khaine is Krethusa's Crone Host.
There's no end.
Krethusa's Crone Host, however you say that name. This is interesting because it's a very cheap entry point to the army, and I don't think it's horrendous. Points wise, it's low. You get Krethusa herself, 10 Sisters of Slaughter, who again are also the Witch Elves, it's a dual build, and 5 Doomfire Warlocks. It's a better discount than the actual Spearhead because this is a cheaper box right now.
Yeah, this is like 112, whereas Spearhead was 145. So like, yeah, you're getting less out of it, but it costs less. So basically a better deal, and it's a far more focused box.
Yes. However, there's caveats. Krethusa herself wants you to have a Blood Cauldron, which is a separate, almost $90 kit. Which is where this kind of falls apart for me. I wish this had been a full Spearhead-sized box and included that so that it wouldn't feel weirdly half done. Like, this almost feels like a gotcha in that way. Like, you look at her rules after you buy her, and you're like, oh, I have to buy this other kit now.
Because, like, technically, you don't have to, but, like, her entire main ability is, if you're by the Cauldron, do things every turn. That's why a lot of the power is going to be in doing that thing. So like, you really do have to get the Cauldron of Blood to be able to play this in any way that it was expected.
Yeah, so it's weird to recommend this one. Math wise, technically it's a better deal for your box than the Spearhead is. I don't think that's everything though. The Spearhead is a legal Spearhead. You can at least play Spearhead with it. This is not. This is also, it's like less than 300 points no matter how you build it.
That is true. But like, it could be a nice, like, if you got the Spearhead and you actually like this side of the army more, you could grab this in addition to it and start building towards a larger list.
Yeah, grab this, grab a Blood Throne, and you actually start building out your elves half of the army.
Yeah, you're getting close to like 1,000 points there, and you have a focus to build towards kind of thing.
It's an option. I don't really love either of Doc's options, but I would say the Spearhead's the safer safer bet, even though you just have to know it's a sampler type spearhead where it gives you a little bit of everything and then you're going to want to go in a direction, collecting afterwards most likely.
Well, let's move on to one that is very focused, let's say.
Do you like fat, naked men?
Yeah, we got Fyreslayers, and
what are your thoughts on bears?
I go berserk over them. I don't know, dude. So this has got a Battlesmith, 5 Hearthguard Berserks, and 20 Volkite Berserkers. And that's it. That's the 400 points.
26 naked dwarves of some variety.
It does what's said on the tin.
Yep.
This is Fyreslayers.
Aesthetically, I think we both despise this faction.
There can be some fun parts to it, and like I kind of...
Sure, the dragon monsters, which are not in this box.
Yeah, the Magma Droths are not in the box because the box is $145 and those are $120 each. But other than those, this is Fyreslayers, and it is a discount. It's not an amazing discount, but it's perfectly reasonable for what you would want, 30%-ish. It is a bit disappointing on how low the points are, though.
It's hard to tell you if you want this. If you're looking into Fyreslayers, you know if you want it.
I feel like more commonly, at least maybe our biases are making this feeling kind of thing, but you're gonna look at it and be like, the Magma Droths are cool as shit. I can't play the game with literally just that one model. I guess I'll pick up the Spearhead. Right? Like,
yeah.
I feel like that's a way to get into it, and perfectly reasonable.
I don't know what to recommend with this one. It is technically a discount box of all time. All right, so let's move into IDK, one that's pretty easy to sell. For Idoneth Deepkin, you get a Soul Scryer for your leader, an Alopex, which is a shark, 3 guys riding eels that can be built into 2 different types of eels, and I can't tell the difference, and 10 Namarti Thralls, which are just generic chaff and very bad. That's their job. So this is a good slice of the entire IDK range other than different leaders and stuff. I think if you're interested in IDK, 2 copies of this box is totally a good idea. It's a decent discount. It's got basically, like a good mixed variety for your army.
And I know that we've been negative about the mixed things with
But it's different when Thralls are just chaff. It's not like a full branch of the army.
They're different, but they synergize well together as a army, a tactical kind of war game thing going on, which is good.
I have no problems recommending the Idoneth box. I think it's a solid one to pick up. Literally 2 copies is not a problem for you. It's over a quarter of a 2,000 point list each. Even with the Soul Scryer taken out of the equation, it is very solid to pick up 2 copies of it and call it good.
I actually would say, if you have strong feelings about playing Idoneth Deepkin, because, you've played somebody else's at the shop, or you've, played on Tabletop Sim or something like that, and you're like, I really want this, I would recommend getting 2 of the Spearhead. It's just going to be such a nice core to your army that you can then put the flair in the rest of the points kind of thing and figure out from there.
The flair being you must legally... by rules, put a giant turtle in your list.
I'm not sure that's actually true, but I support this.
You cannot make an IDK list that does not have a Leviathan. It is required.
I mean, yeah.
Even when it's terrible, it's still required, and it's not terrible right now.
It is so cool.
We're not biased. Giant turtle.
So yeah, Idoneth Deepkin are good. Let's move on to Kharadron Overlords. This one is weird.
It's a solid box. It's high on points. It's over 700 points. It's over a 40% discount. You get a ship, you get an admiral, you get 3 Sky Wardens, you get 10 Arcanaut Company. It's a really solid value if you need the ship. Because the ship is a $90 kit on its own, and this is $145, and you get a solid chunk of your army in addition. So this one, as much as KO I don't think is in a great spot right now, but rules are always temporary. They were oppressive for 2 editions in a row. So if you want to get into the game with Kharadron Overlords, this box is extremely good, and I think multiple copies is really good.
I would definitely agree that the first box is great. If you want more, depends on like which type of ship you want to go after, because that is a majority of this box is the ship. And if you want the frigate, then yeah, get more of this.
True, you can go up to the other type of ship, yeah.
Yeah, so like if you don't and you want to do the other ones, then that's fine. You'll still probably want one of the spearheads here just because this is a great discount. And part of it is just because of how KO is.
They are ship-based through and through. You will be playing multiple ships.
Yeah, and if you're not...
The army has fundamentally changed.
Yeah, so this is a great one, and multiple definitely possible. Very cool. It's nice to see that they actually did make sure to put a ship in this, because like as dumb as it sounds...
You can't not.
You say that, but like I feel like GW could have found a way to not do it and been like, oh yeah, but it's an upgrade path. It's fucking the old magic fucking EDH shit. It's like, well, we didn't include that because we want to have it so that you can have an upgrade path that's clear. Yeah, the upgrade path's my fucking wallet.
All right, let's move on from dwarves back to elves.
Yeah, Lumineth Realm-Lords. You get a Sonari Cathalar, 5 Blade Lords, 10 Wardens, and 10 Sentinels.
It's low on points. It is still 3 units and a leader.
It's low on points. It is a solidly decent discount. It's on the upper end, but it's not quite as good as KO. The only problem is if you're trying to buy this because you want to play Spearhead as your main goal.
Okay, so we weren't going to talk too much about rules. However, we played probably a couple dozen games of Spearhead now. The Lumineth Realm-Lords is the worst Spearhead any of us have ever played. It just doesn't work in the format. You get stomped by every other faction very regularly.
And it's not even really one of those like I just have to play more finesse style, like if I just play better kind of thing. You're just so weak in comparison to every other faction in Spearhead that they can just move their shit forward and you crumble.
Yeah. So LRL in the full game plays a lot like a combo. A lot of, putting certain things in certain positions, layering buffs on stuff, trying for all that.
There's a lot of positioning and making sure that everything's cohesive together in the right spots and that you have access to dealing with your enemy before they can do anything. Really cool.
The Spearhead lacks the tools to play like that, and yet it doesn't have better stats to compensate for the lack of it. So if you're starting out with this, just know you're starting out with what, in our opinion, we haven't played every Spearhead army, just the ones we have access to and stuff. Out of all the ones we've played, LRL are consistently the worst ones to play.
And it also honestly just feels bad to play it, even when you're really trying. It's such an uphill battle to hang on.
And then your buddy's playing the Yndrasta list, and you're like, wow, this is so fair. We're both evenly matched. And then turn 3, they're like, oh, by the way, half of my list wasn't playing against you.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, this is fun. So that, like you said, we're not trying to get into rules too much on these. This is a good discount box to getting into Lumineth Realm-Lords for like the full game. But if you just want to play Spearhead and that is like the end goal, Lumineth Realm-Lords is likely to be disappointing. And it sucks to say that, but like it is what it is, right? All right, Brad, dinosaurs.
Okay, so the Spearhead for Seraphon. You get a blank on Carnosaur, either an Old Blood or Scarvet, or you build it as there's options.
You get a Carnosaur and things can happen to it.
You get Carnosaur.
Yeah.
You get 3 Kroxigor and you get 10 Saurus Warriors. It honestly doesn't look like that much, especially compared to how much is in a lot of these other boxes. But from an actual discount standpoint, it's still a pretty decent box. From a point standpoint, it's still over 700 points.
The Carnosaur is big.
It's a good big model.
It's a big dinosaur.
The Kroxigor are big.
It sounds like, oh, you only have 3 units, but it's like, The Saurus warriors are like not tiny.
Yeah, they're decently elite. Then Kroxigor are like big monstrous infantry boys.
They're big and chunky.
And then you've got your Carnosaurs, just a huge, great centerpiece model. And again, you can build it as a Troglodon and you can do other stuff. But we're going to focus on the main build that it expects you to build. It's a decent value box. It's a lot of points. It's a fun intro to the army if you want the Saurus half of the army. If you're more into the skink half, then this obviously isn't the box for you, but they took away the skink half box, so you don't really get a choice for a discount box over there right now.
Yeah, it sucks, but like if you're really focused on that part, you don't have an option. You just have to buy it on its own. I don't think they play terribly together. Like, so long as you're mostly focused on one part and then like a couple sprinkled in, it can work, but like...
Yeah, my thing is like get a Slann, go that route, and then you can weave in and out how much you have Saurus, how much you have Skinks and all that. But I like the box for the most part. It's weird because it doesn't look like much, but like they're expensive models, so it is. And they're expensive both in points and in price, so in both cases, it's a decent discount. It's a lot of points. There's no reason not to pick up 2 of this box if you're interested in the Saurus half, because you're going to want more Kroxigor, you're going to want more Saurus, and if you don't want Carnosaurs, I don't want to speak to you.
That's a bit harsh. But it does get on the point of, if you look at the box and you're like, Carnosaur's fucking cool, man. All right, you're the target audience. This is a good discount and a solid build for a Spearhead. Like, yes, recommended. Trees. Okay, Sylvaneth.
Trees.
So for Sylvaneth, we've got a Branch Witch, a Tree Lord, Ancient.
That can build into any of the Tree Lords, yeah.
We've got 3 Kurnoth Hunters and 5 of the Spite Revenants or whatever. They're like another multi-option thing.
Yeah, they can be Tree Sentinels or whatever. You can, if you build Durthu and do everything, max points of this thing is actually really high at almost 800 points. It's also like close to a 40% discount. None of these models are bad, other than I think the Branch Witch is kind of old looking.
Compared to like the new stuff that they got, that's absolutely gorgeous. Yes. But I think it's still kind of nice looking, and there's a very obvious theme going on, and it does it well. It's honestly a good intro box for Sylvaneth, and I don't think even as much as you hate Sylvaneth, you can disagree that like this is a great start to getting into Sylvaneth.
No. Aesthetically, I like Sylvaneth's thing. I like the idea of the trees come to life, that whole thing. My issues with Sylvaneth are entirely gameplay related, different subject. That said, this is a great box, great value. It's hard into this half of the army if you wanted to do like a Bug Rider themed part of the army with those kits. None of them are here, but again, since none of them are here, you don't have the weird which half do you want to go down. This is this part of the army.
Well, and even if you do that, like you'll probably have some use of either like a Tree Lord, or, you know, if you were more interested in the bug, you'd have Delphinos or whatever. So like even if you were hard on the bug side, you'd have probably 1 or 2 trees, and
Kurnoth would still have use to you, and yeah.
So it's one of those that like I don't see the first one being a problem if you're interested in Sylvaneth.
And honestly, 2 is totally fine. This is a solid box through and through. Again, I don't like how Sylvaneth plays. That is irrelevant. It's a very good pickup for a beautiful army.
And honestly, once you have 2 of those, because the army is not that huge of a range, you can kind of have obvious like, oh, this is the next model I'm going to pick, because most of them are like the, oh, this is the big centerpiece kind of $120, $160 model, right? Like that's the next thing you're going to move towards, which is, I mean, it's kind of nice to know that, oh, this is like the path.
All right, that does it for order. Let's hit death real quick before we move on to chaos. First up, we've got Flesh Eater Courts. They have been newly refreshed for the most part. There's a couple old kits in there. Their current box is basically a sampler of their new kits. It's the Aberrant Archregent, a Vargulf Courtier, 3 Morbid Knights, and 10 Crypt Guard, which is basically like most of the new range. Unfortunately, it's a really mediocre discount. If you don't want everything in this box, do not buy it, essentially. If you don't want one of these items, it is cheaper to buy the actual kits.
If you want them all, though,
then it is a discount. It's fine.
It's a fine start. You'll use the models. So, like, if you're not sure what you wanted to get, this is a fine start. It is a discount. But if you're like, oh, I need the Morbid Knights and the Crypt Guard,
but you don't need the Courtier, you don't need need the regen anymore, suddenly this is terrible.
Yeah, it's like actively bad kind of thing. So definitely wouldn't want 2 of these, but it's fine as a starting point if you have no idea and you're just like, oh, Flesh Eater Quartz is cool.
If you could get use out of 2 copies of everything, it's fine to get a second one, but like it's not a big discount. It's not a big worry. Really, it's not a very good discount box. As long as you like everything, it is a discount at like 25%. Then we can move into Nighthaunt. Nighthaunt is a pretty standard discount box. You get a Knight of Shrouds, Reapers, Chain Rasps, Spirit Hosts. It's like a normal discount. It's 600 points. It is a totally fine start to Nighthaunt if that's where you want to go.
And I think just looking at all of the models, you'll know if like Nighthaunt is for you kind of thing.
Do you want to play Bedsheet Ghosts? If that is something that you're like, that's cool, then you're in. This is a solid way to enter the army. Seems fine. Technically, the Knight of Shrouds can't be bought anywhere else, so this is an extra good pickup for your first one if you want it.
I don't think I would get multiple, but I don't know exactly.
Nighthaunt's weird because it's a horde army. I don't know.
I wouldn't snap pick up 2 just because I don't know enough about it, but
one will last you a long time anyway, because you have a lot of stuff to put together.
Yeah. And if it ends up being one of those where you're like, oh, obviously I want another 20 Chain Rasps and 10 Reapers, well, this Spearhead's still probably going to be available to you for a while, so pick it up.
Then we've got Bonereapers. OBR has the Soul Reaper, a Harvester, Dick Guy,
wow,
5 Death Riders, and 20 more Tech Guard. It is a solid box. It's a lot of points at like 760 right now. It's not the greatest discount in total, but it's okay.
It's fine. Like, it's in the solid, like,
middle of the road discount.
This is a discount. It's not trying to screw you kind of thing, but it's also not, oh my god.
One thing to be aware of, more Tech Guard are in like every single OBR combo set that ever gets made, and they usually overpack them. There's going to come a point where you no longer see more Tech Guard as value to you because you just have enough, and then you'll find out that they don't sell for that much online secondhand because most people have enough. When that happens, all of their combo boxes tend to tank in value for you from then on out.
That's kind of to be expected on these smaller range factions because it's just like you only have so many basic infantry, and like for a lot of these things you want a basic infantry option, so it's like, well, this is your option, you put more Tech Guards in them. But yeah, it is something to keep in mind, but there's nothing really wrong with it as like a solid entry point. Moving on into Soulblight Gravelords, we've got a Vampire Lord, 3 Vargeist, 5 Blood Knights, and 20 Skeletons, and this is actually a pretty good discount. Not the best, but like we're getting into some solid discount here.
And importantly, I think all the models are good except for the Vargeist are kind of old. It's a newly refreshed range. Most of these come from the refresh. The Skeletons are one of my all-time favorite kits ever for a look standpoint.
Dude, the Skeletons are so cool, and like the Knights are badass as well.
Yeah, the Blood Knights look great. It's a very solid discount. It's over 600 points. There's nothing wrong with this box. Picking up your first one if you're into Soulblight is absolutely a good idea. Second one is up to you.
I wouldn't immediately jump on it, but also I think if you bought 2 of them, it would probably be perfectly fine. The only concern there really is if they're going to do a refresh on the Vargeist.
Yeah, because it's one of the oldest models that is also a Flesh Eater Court model, and
it's still perfectly fine. Honestly, I don't think it looks that bad. It's just not quite to the standard, which if they do a refresh, that's going to be cool as shit because there's a lot that they can do with it. But, you know, it's one of those, like, if you go Vargeist heavy and then they immediately come out with a new one, it's going to feel kind of bad if you're just starting into AoS. So, you know, I'm not sure about immediately jumping on 2 of these, but this is a great start to Soulblight Gravelords.
So they have the Caveat extra box again. This is part of that end of last edition box set. It still exists when we're recording this, still in stock. It may not exist when you watch this.
Yeah, it could disappear at any point.
In my opinion, it doesn't matter much if it doesn't. This is Sekar's box, the Fangs of the Blood Queen. It was like her launch box. It's less than 500 points. It's a very cheap box, only $112 for MSRP. It's technically a decent discount. However, it's literally just a character and 2 absolute chaff beast units. If you want both Fellbat and Direwolves for your army and you don't own her yet, a box of this is fine to pick up. It's a decent box for a one-off purchase, but like if it's gone, I wouldn't cry.
Essentially, you're buying this because you want Sekar and you have use for the Fellbats and Direwolves.
Yeah.
You don't want 2 Sekars, so like that's it.
It is going to be a narrow window where this is something that is of interest to you.
But it is a solid discount and it still technically exists as we're doing this and it's not bad. So like, all right, sure.
So let's go into Chaos now. We'll save Skaven for last here.
All right, then let's just start with Khorne.
So Khorne, it's got a start collecting that still exists on GW Store, but I'm going with it's not going to ever come back in stock. It's dead. They've got a Spearhead with a Slaughter Priest, 3 Skull Crushers, 10 Warriors, 10 Reavers. It's not a huge discount, but it's a huge box. Like you get a lot of points. It's just a decent slice of like, this is what Mortals in Khorne looks like.
Yeah, it is. But at the same time, it is on the lower end of discounts for actually being a discount box.
It is really badly. It is hardly a discount. If you do not want everything, don't buy this.
Yeah, I've got no real interest in the second one, and probably not if you have like any Khorne already.
It's a really solid first box, though.
It is solid as a start. We've also got out of left field.
This one's cool. So you can buy the 40k Combat Patrol for Chaos Demons because it's all Khorne demons. If you're not interested in Mortals of Khorne and you want Demons of Khorne, there's a box for that too. If only I could say that about all the other gods.
So in this, you get the Herald on foot, you get 20 Bloodletters, 3 Blood Crushers, and 10 Flesh Hounds. This is a massive discount.
It is almost 1,000 points. It is a huge discount money-wise at like 47%.
It is more expensive at $168, but like you get so much more from it than like any of the other Spearheads that the discount is amazing. And this is just like a great thing to pick up if you're interested in Khorne demons at all.
I actually think that like if you're interested in the whole Khorne range, like Mortals and Demons, a box of each of these gives you a solid start into both parts of the army, and then you just build up to a giant Khorne collection and be the Khorne guy.
If you get one of each of these, like you basically have a full army. It's not quite synergistic, but like at the same time, it's not that bad.
There's the one battle formation you can do that wants to be both, so like you've got a list.
Yeah, it's not the kind of optimal thing that like I would expect, but it's perfectly reasonable.
A thing to note, if you're interested in Spearhead though, I do not believe Spearhead supports the Combat Patrol Chaos Demons intro to Khorne. You will want to go the Mortal route if you're just interested in the Spearhead part of the army.
Yeah.
But moving on to Tzeentch. Tzeentch has a sampler platter for its Spearhead. You get a Magister on disc, 3 Screamers, 3 Flamers, 10 Zongor, 10 Acolytes. It's iffy in my opinion. It's less iffy in AoS as much as 40k players in the audience are laughing.
I think you're crazy, man. Like this seems like a great start to Tzeentch.
It's okay. It's a sampler platter. It's not heavy into mortal stuff. It's not heavy into demon stuff. It's got some beastmen there. It's a little scatterbrain, but it's fine. One copy of this box would be a decent pickup for you to figure out what you like and which direction you want to go in.
Yeah.
Weirdly, the Magister on disc is not purchasable on GW's website right now alone, even though I know for a fact there is multiple of it sitting on the store shelf at our LGS, but it's not on GW's website, so it's really hard to figure out the discount of this box right now.
And it's not like that is some ancient model that it's like, oh, clearly it's going away. It's kind of new and it's nice. Weird. But the discount isn't going to be bad. Anyway, it shakes out kind of thing. It's going to be a solid discount.
Yeah, so let's just move on to Slaanesh. We've got another solid Spearhead.
Well, it's not called a Spearhead.
Yeah, is it a Spearhead? That's a good question. So it's entirely mortal based. And then it's the last one that for some reason didn't get renamed to Spearhead. It's still called Vanguard as we're recording this. I don't know why. It's a legal Spearhead. It's just weird.
You just have to like build it in like the right ways and whatever. But this Vanguard, that is a Spearhead, has a Shard Speaker of Slaanesh, Slangor Fiend Bloods, Slickblade Sleek. Is it Slickblade? Seekers that...
Slickblade Seekers or Blissbarb Seekers.
Yeah, but I wanted to go with whatever the actual rules goes with. It's got the Slickblade it's got the Slickblade Sleek fucking shitbag. It's got the Slickblade.
He's doing a me. This is making the final cut.
Yeah,
I'm here.
I know.
Hi, YouTube.
Fuck you. It's got 5 of the Slickblade Seekers and 10 of the Blissbarb Archers. So it is one of those you can choose how to build it kind of thing, and it is a valid spearhead.
It's a solid discount. It's like 600-ish points. It's all mortal based, so it's got a slant to it. I like it.
Yeah, so I mean, it seems like a pretty solid entry, but let's move on to Nurgle.
Your favorite.
Yeah.
Nurgle Spearhead has Spoilpox Scrivener, 10 Plague Bearers, 5 Putrid Blight Kings, 2 Pusgoyle Blight Lords, one of which could get built as a character. It's like 700-ish points. It can be built multiple ways. It's kind of weird because you've got Spoilpox isn't sold separate anymore, so it's hard to tell you what the discount even is. It is a okay start that has half mortals, half demons, depending on your feelings. If you only want to play Blight Kings and don't really want Nurgle demons, bad box. Same for the reverse. If you like Nurgle as a whole and you're okay with having a big mortal collection and demon collection eventually, then this is a fine start to the army.
Yeah, I think unless like you're super serious that you only like one section of it and like you're dead set, if there's any question of like, yeah, I might enjoy the demon or I might have some interest in maybe trying out the mortal part, I think the Spearhead is a good pickup.
Next up, Slaves of Darkness. It is a solid box. You get a Chaos Lord on foot, a Chaos Chariot, 10 Warriors, and 5 Knights. It is essentially a sampler platter of Slaves of Darkness. Like, this is the basics of the army. It's solid looking. It's a good amount of points. It's a decent discount. It's not crazy good, but it's fine. The models look decent. Like, there's nothing like horrendously wrong with anything. The Chariot's a dual build. You can either build it as a Gore Beast Chariot or a normal Chaos Chariot.
Honestly, there's like nothing wrong with it, but it's also not like, oh my god, standing out kind of thing. It's just really good value.
It's all the safest parts of the STD range. There's no like crazy Varengard edition. There's no crazy like named character up front. It's a very safe generic STD start.
It's one of those that it's hard to come up with a theoretical better safe version. Like, it has some flair to it, but like it's all pretty standard, and that's good. At a certain point, it's nice to have these intros give you options. But with that, I think we have to do Skaven now. Not quite as complicated as Stormcast was, though.
It's going to mirror it in a lot of ways, though. So we already talked about the Ultimate box and the normal standard starter box. Skaven has the issue of you can't really tell what the discount is because a lot of their kits are the brand new kits that have not been released solo yet. So it's hard to tell you how good of a discount these are. I'm going to assume they are generally fine. You get a lot of points no matter which entry you use to get in, whether it be the Ultimate Edition or trying for a Skaven Tide Half or going for the Spearhead that we'll get into in a minute. For the Ultimate Edition, you get the Claw Lord on Gnawbeast, the Greyseer, the Warplock Engineer, 20 Clan Rats, and 3 Rat Ogres. You just don't get your Claw Lord if you're doing the standard starter box, which is fine, but it's not a legal Spearhead, so it's like a very intro entry point, as we discussed with Stormcast Eternals. I don't have an issue with doing the split on the Ultimate Edition for Skaven, but while you're able to get a hold of Skaven Tide on eBay, I think it's a better pickup.
It is still more expensive on eBay than Stormcast. Like, Stormcast was about 90-ish. It's looking like Skaven's like 120, 130, something like that, which is more, but...
Skaven will also dry up first. So if you're watching this 6 months after this episode, it's entirely possible that you can't even use this option anymore. It wouldn't even be a discount to try to buy it.
Skaven is definitely the more popular half for that box.
Yeah. So the Skaven half of Skaven Tide is a huge discount. It is a solid deal. It's a lot of points. It's a lot of models. It's very good. But if it doesn't exist, the Ultimate Edition is still a fine box with a fine discount if you're splitting it with a Stormcast friend or selling off those models. But with those all out of the way, the Skaven also have a Spearhead.
The Skaven Spearhead's got a Greyseer, 20 Clan Rats, 3 Storm Fiends, and a Warp Lightning Cannon.
And so this was the Vanguard, and now they updated it. All they did was they swapped out the old awful clan rat models for the new ones.
I mean, you say all they did kind of thing, and that was like the only problem that we were having
Yes.
with the old one was like, yeah, it's good, it's solid value, but you've got shitty old clan rats. But if you don't have shitty old clan rats and you got the new ones, yeah.
It's a really solid box. So the Greyseer is technically the old Greyseer model, not the new one, but it holds up really well. It's a beautiful model.
Yeah, because I don't think the new one's out yet, so...
No, it's only in the combo boxes right now.
Yeah, it makes sense that they didn't fully update that, but it's perfectly reasonable to have the old one.
Also, the Storm Fiends are fantastic. Clan Scryer is the best, and a Warp Lightning Cannon goes with them pretty well.
Oh, I mean, that's just such a cool model.
If you're interested in Scryer stuff, I think this is a solid pickup in addition to one of the other, like either the Ultimate Edition half or trying to pick up Skaven Tide, and you could end up with a really good gunline heavy Skaven start.
Yeah.
Lots of Scryer and maybe a bit of Molder going into the big Rat Ogres and Storm Fiends and all that. I like this as a starting point a lot.
Even if you're not able to pick up the other ones, the Ultimate or the Skaven Tide half, I think the Spearhead's a great start, and it does go well with the other ones if you're trying to do that. Honestly, because they all are fairly high in point cost. Like if you get 2, you're well on your way to a full army list. You really can't go wrong.
No, Skaven is the best.
Yeah. All right, so that wraps up that, I guess, destruction time.
So destruction, we can start off with Gloomspite Gitz. You get a Loon Boss, 10 Squig Hoppers, 3 Troggoths, and 20 Stabas or Shootas. This one's a rough recommend. It's not a huge discount, and the Stabas and Shootas is one of the oldest, shittiest looking kits that's still in the game in my opinion.
It's pretty terrible, yeah. And they're also not cheap. It's like $45 for that.
Yep.
Which is, GW does some funny things with their prices. That's a fucking laugh. But all that said, like, if you're playing Gloomspite Gitz, yes, this doesn't focus on anything, but I feel like until you've actually played the army, it's tough to, like, say, like, oh, I want to be all in on this.
I want to be all in on Troggoths, and I've never played the army.
I guess.
Troggoths are cool.
Maybe it's just because I like all of the options that I'm like, I don't know which one I would go to, so...
I like Squig Riders too. The Squig Riders are also cool. But that said, like, yeah, it's a sampler platter style list. It's a okay starting box. My problem with it is it's hard for me to recommend because Stabas and Shootas are ancient and ugly, and the box isn't a very good discount to begin with, so when you pull them out of your value, just buy the units you want to play. Unless, again, if you're playing Spearhead, this is the list, it's technically a discount.
If I'm being honest, it's not terrible to have 20 Staba or Shootas. Like, I never want more. That's then a waste of money if you're going after it kind of thing, but it's nice to have just those trash frontline units as an option.
If they get a Skaven style swap, like they get a new Stabashuta updated sculpt that looks a lot better and is newer, if they just swapped that, this would be a much easier recommend for me. That said, it's kind of a just buy what you want in this army. This isn't a great, huge discount you're missing out on, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's definitely on the lower end. It's not terrible. We have worse, but it's not something to really be excited over on the discount. That said, we can move into Ogor Mawtribes, and they've got a little bit of a discount on this one.
So this one, yeah, it's kind of famous from the start of the edition when everyone did their quick maths on everything, because the Ogre box is a massive amount of points.
It's half of a full army. It just is. You get a Tyrant, you get an Iron Blaster or whatever, 2 Mournfane Riders, 4 Lead Belchers, 6 Gluttons, and 4 Noblars.
And there's some secrets to this. You can get 20 Noblars out of this box. If you play around, this can be more. And that's without getting into the whole, like, you can turn some of your dudes into more elite infantry with just some arm swap stuff to get a lot of value out of it if you start playing around and all that. It could be a great discount depending how you do things. Lots of tricks with this box if you get into the Ogre community and talk to people there.
Even if you don't, it's still fine.
However, I have a warning. Ogres is by by far the oldest range in AoS right now, to my knowledge. There was a big question when they booted Beasts of Chaos to Oblivion if they were going to do the same to Ogres. They didn't, and they updated a couple of units in Warcry and stuff. It is highly likely that within the next 3 years, the entire Ogre range will get updated, whether it be later this edition or whether it be as like the little brother army of next edition. If you're going to feel bad about the fact that you bought some uglier, older sculpts, and you're going to be annoyed that the new beautiful giant ogres come out and they're all jacked and cool, I would warn against getting this box. If it's something where you're going to feel like you got scammed because you just bought this box and a year later ogres got updated, then don't buy this box.
I don't see ogres going away.
No. If they were going to do it, they were going to do it with Beasts of Chaos at the beginning of this edition. It is clear at this point that ogres is going to stay around and get updated instead.
And I think that they do have a unique enough aesthetic and all that stuff that they can do well on their own. And there are some models currently for ogres that if they do a refresh, the new ones, they're going to be so much better. Like, honestly, they're just going to be tiers better.
You're saying that these ogres weren't peak design?
Yeah.
The lumpy potatoes?
The lumpy potato. Yeah, basically. I mean, even if like they keep that style, which I think they probably will, there's just so much more that they can do with sculpts instead of this. So yeah, that is a good thing to keep in mind. Obviously, we don't know any of the future on that. Like, we have no insider knowledge. Probably isn't happening in the immediate future. But yeah, 2 years, 3 years from now, I could see them making updates.
Again, from a math standpoint, this box is outrageous.
It is extremely good. Good enough that, like, I feel like you shouldn't be too worried if it makes it, 2 or 3 years, just because this is such a good discount. And, like, they're not going to do everything all at once, probably. I don't know, man. Solid.
So, moving into Oryx, we have a caveat. We're early in the edition still. We do know that the Ironjaw's Spearhead is coming, but it is next year sometime. So, right now, all we've got is the Cruel Boys one. So, this is the Cruel Boys Spearhead. That is currently the only one for Oryx.
And holy shit, is this fucking complicated.
And bad.
And terrible, yeah.
The good of it first. So you get a Killaboss, a Merknob, a Beast Skewer Killbow, 3 Bolt Boys, and 10 Gut Rippas. This is 760 points. It sounds okay. However, Dominion didn't sell well, is the understatement of the century. So if you have the ability to type on eBay for the entire existence of the Spearhead, it is a negative discount versus just buying the models on eBay, because these models did not sell well. Their box set had terrible stuff in it. It's kind of weird that, like, you can buy some of the stuff on GW's website, go on eBay, get a Killaboss, Merknob, Bolt Boy combo sprue thing for like $40, and it is cheaper than just buying this damn box.
And, like, you can get that half of Dominion for like 80, and I'm not even like the first thing that popped up that wasn't ridiculous shipping.
Which has more than this.
Yeah.
So basically, my advice is do not buy this Spearhead until what you are seeing when you type into eBay is not what we are seeing.
Right. There's probably going to be a point where that is no longer actually discounted because it's dried up enough and whatever.
But it's been 3 years and it's still not dried up.
Yeah. This Spearhead isn't bad.
No, it would be fine if it wasn't for the fact that it's literally just cheaper to go online.
Yeah. This would be perfectly fine if that option didn't exist, but it does exist. And just go with Dominion and look forward to the other part of Oryx coming at some point in the future.
They are totally splitting the army in two.
Yeah.
That's why it's currently Orruk Warclans. This will become the Cruel Boys Spearhead.
We have one last one. The Spearhead Sons of Behemat. It's nice and simple. We've got 3 Man-Crusher Gargants.
Don't buy it.
It's technically a discount.
Yeah, so this is a weird one because I'm pretty sure before this existed, these were purchasable in doubles for a good amount less. Kind of weird.
I mean, is it weird though?
No, kind of predictable, but also sad. And in general, if you're into Sons of Behemat, do you really want the Man-Crusher Gargants? They look like ass compared to the full-size Gargants. Maybe if you really want to play Spearhead, you do this.
Which is interesting because, like, we're not getting too much into the rules, but we did bring up, like, Lumineth Realm-Lords is a problem in Spearhead. And you would think, like, oh, Sons of Behemat has 3 models, and I know people complain about Knights in 40k. Sons of Behemat Spearhead is not terrible. Like, it's not the worst at all.
It's on the lower end power-wise in my opinion, but it actually manages to be mostly balanced in Spearhead due to the Spearhead rules. I give them props.
There are obvious issues with just having 3 models, like that skews how the game plays, but not anywhere near as bad as some could expect, kind of thing. So like perfectly reasonable if you and your group are playing Spearhead to get the Sons of Behemat Spearhead, but otherwise
Get your full-size Gargants. You know that's why you wanted to play this army.
get the Gargants.
Don't lie to yourself and get these little boys.
They are so much cooler. They are expensive though.
Oh yeah.
I think one of them is going to be more by like a solid amount than the Spearhead. So, some potential problems there, but they're cool.
So overall, I think the majority of these Spearheads are at least recommendable as a ×1. Several of them are really good.
I was kind of shocked on how many of them were like, this is really good, or this is really good, I want to, maybe some more kind of thing.
Coming from people who play 40k, it's constantly shocking to me how much more sane AoS looks, price-wise and entry point-wise and all of that. Like, whenever we do these episodes and do like the intro to AoS episodes, I'm always like, man, the grass sure is greener over here.
AoS still has its problems.
It's got some issues.
And it's easier for us to look past or not notice because we're not primarily AoS players. But oh boy, I get that same feeling that you do of that grass looks pretty green.
But before we go, a real quick thank you. We had to throw this together like last second. It is Saturday. You guys will hear this Monday night / see it Tuesday morning. A special thank you to Borelio for sacrificing the next 48 hours of his life. And special thanks to a bunch of patrons. Borelio, please put them all on screen for us, who helped us get all this data together.
Yeah.
It was a big help after our actual planned episode for this week fell through. But stay tuned next month if you like AoS. We have a different AoS episode coming that we wanted to do right now that we're really excited for.
And hopefully, this one was slightly helpful to somebody, or at least entertaining.
It is always fun to look at how you could get tempted into another game.
Yeah.
For your 5th army.
Yeah, I was like, there's no problems. No problems at all.
All right, but before we go, we have a bunch of patrons we have to shout out, because it is that time of the month where we have to shout out all of these amazing people supporting us. They are 100 Johnny,
3D Frank,
4K Fart,
99 Nines,
Adrian Franke,
Alex Fuja,
Another Harry Sasquatch,
Ballad,
Bedlam's Nemesis,
Beth Jesus,
Blubbles 180,
Cameron Cairns Baker,
Cameron R,
Christian Shrelius Vickland,
Christopher Gargliano,
Chroma Vale,
Chuck Mordock,
Craig Judge,
Cube 1359,
Daniel Han,
Das Goopy,
Devin Voiles,
Dominic Colasico,
Duskers,
Edward Lawrence,
Eric Paint the Plane, bad blah.
He can't even say it. He won't paint it.
No, this is impossible to do.
He's never seen this word.
What is this?
It's not right behind him right now.
It's not, actually. I got my painting set up in the other room. Eric Paint the Baneblade. Eric Paint the Blade. Eric Paint the Baneblade. Eric Paint the Baneblade.
Ethan Gerard.
Exodia Wannabe.
Azelvor.
Finn Smellies.
Gathering Clouds.
Geet.
Gyarados.
Happy Brontosaurus.
Hyperion TV.
I paid $15 to say I'm trapped in Eric's basement.
Joke's on you guys. Eric's not rich enough to afford a basement.
Not wrong. That is somebody else's residence of living.
Jacob Gibson.
Jarrett DePerna.
Calyx.
Katie and Moore.
Lucas.
Le Bloop Bloop.
Logan Banach.
LSJ.
Madison Ramanama.
Matthew Tsushima.
Michael Melcher.
Mixolia Diaz.
Burnt toast.
Moist Toast.
Monkey 218.
Morpheal 55.
Pierce is testing the Patreon character limit.
Purdius 7331.
Retro Brave.
Rookie XP.
Ross Warlock.
Samuel Summerfield.
Sarah Hansen.
Spinel.
Squareson.
The Marine Who Plays Tau.
The Tired EMR.
The Crusader 13.
There were no wolves on Fenris.
I'm glad you read that one. Thurango.
Vartha Mark.
Vault Guardian.
Vic Legina.
Warm Hotcakes.
And Why So Mad 2.
Thank you for supporting the show.
We also have producers we thank every week. They are A Speedy Freak.
Blizzard Brain.
Demolition Man.
Dr. Lace.
Huge Axeman.
Yon Guy C.
Kiwi Fruitbird.
Lord Partridge II.
Nathan Stewart.
And Jay Harlan.
North.
Pizza 00100.
Rock.
Scott Gray.
Sebastian Richardson.
Stephen Bingham.
The Mailman,
The Milkman,
and Wargame Simulator. Thank you all so much for supporting the show. You are wonderful. On that note, we can get out of here for the week.
Sounds good.